You check your phone again. Nothing. The person you cannot stop thinking about is the one who barely thinks about you. They take hours to reply, sometimes days. And somehow, that silence only makes them burn brighter in your mind. Meanwhile, the person who adores you, who texts back in seconds, who would never leave you guessing, makes you feel almost nothing at all. Most people call this bad luck or bad taste, but the real answer is far stranger. The reason you fall for the people who ignore you has almost nothing to do with them and almost everything to do with the machine inside your brain that was built long ago to gamble. Let me explain. Your brain runs on a chemical called dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It is not. Dopamine is the wanting chemical. It is the fuel of anticipation, of chasing, of almost. And decades of research have revealed something deeply strange about it. Dopamine does not spike the most when you get a reward. It spikes the most when a reward is uncertain. Hold on to that. It explains your whole love life. In the middle of the last century, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner put animals in boxes with a lever. When the lever always produced a food pellet, the animals pressed it calmly, only when hungry. Predictable. Boring. But then Skinner changed one thing. He made the reward random. Sometimes the lever gave food, sometimes it gave nothing, and the animals lost their minds. They pressed that lever again and again and again, faster and more desperately than they ever had when the reward was guaranteed. Skinner had discovered something that would later explain slot machines, social media, and the person who won't text you back. He called it intermittent reinforcement, and it is the most powerful, most addictive reward schedule known to psychology. Not always, not never. Maybe. A neuroscientist named Robert Sapolsky has described just how deep this goes. In one line of research, a monkey learns that a signal means a reward is coming, and its dopamine rises. But then the scientists change the odds, so the reward only comes half the time. And the dopamine does not drop. It explodes, far higher than when the reward was guaranteed. The single most powerful trigger for dopamine is not getting what you want. It is a 50-50 chance of getting what you want. Sapolsky puts it simply. Once you introduce the word maybe into the equation, the whole system goes into overdrive. Maybe is more addictive than yes, and an unavailable person is a walking, breathing maybe. Maybe they like you. Maybe they will text back. Maybe today is the day they finally choose you. Every hour of their silence is another spin at exactly the odds your brain finds most intoxicating. Think about what a consistent, loving partner actually is. They are the lever that always gives food. You press, you get affection. You press, you get warmth. Reliable, certain, and your dopamine system, wired to chase the uncertain, goes quiet. It reads that steadiness not as safety, but as boredom. Now think about the person who ignores you. Sometimes they are warm, sometimes they vanish. You never know which text will get a reply or which version of them you will get today. You are pulling the lever and you have no idea what will come out. And your brain, that ancient gambling machine, floods you with the wanting chemical. It mistakes that flood for love. But it is not love. It is a slot machine wearing a human face. There is a neuroscientist named Helen Fisher who spent her career putting people who were in love inside brain scanners. She found that romantic love is not really an emotion at all. It is a drive, run by the same dopamine circuits as hunger and thirst. And she discovered something else, something that should stop you cold. When the reward is delayed, when the person you want pulls away, those dopamine neurons do not calm down. They fire harder. Fisher called it frustration attraction. The very act of being denied someone makes your brain want them more. Read that again. The pulling away is not a bug. To your brain, it is the whole point. So the friend who is always there, always kind, always available, never triggers frustration attraction, because there is nothing to be frustrated by. And the person who keeps you at arm's length triggers it constantly. Every ignored message is another delayed reward. Every cold spell is another spin of the wheel. You are not falling for them. You are falling for the uncertainty they create. But dopamine is only half the story, because there is a second trick your body plays on you, and it is even sneakier. In the early 1970s, two psychologists named Aron and Dutton ran an experiment on two bridges. One bridge was low, sturdy, and safe. The other was high, narrow, and terrifying, swaying over a deep canyon. As men crossed each bridge, an attractive woman approached them, asked a few questions, and gave them her phone number in case they had more questions. The men on the safe bridge rarely called, but the men on the terrifying bridge called far more often. They were convinced they had felt a spark of attraction for her. They had not. What they had actually felt was fear. Their hearts were pounding, their palms were sweating, their bodies were flooded with adrenaline from the height, and their brains, needing to explain all that arousal, looked around, saw a woman, and drew the wrong conclusion. They labeled the fear as love. Psychologists call this misattribution of arousal, and it is happening to you every time someone treats you unpredictably. The anxiety of not knowing where you stand, the racing heart when their name finally lights up your screen, the knot in your stomach when they go quiet. Your body is producing all the physical sensations of intense emotion, and your mind, desperate to make sense of the storm, hands you a simple, seductive explanation. This must be love. It feels too strong to be anything else. But strong is not the same as good. A panic attack is strong too. Here is where your childhood quietly enters the room. Because not everyone is equally vulnerable to this. Some people feel the pull of an unavailable partner and walk away easily. Others feel it and cannot breathe. The difference often traces back to how love felt when you were very small. If your early caregivers were consistent, if their affection was reliable and warm, your nervous system learned that love is steady. Calm feels safe to you, but if their attention was unpredictable, if you sometimes got warmth and sometimes got distance and could never quite predict which, your nervous system learned a different lesson. It learned that love is something you have to earn, chase, and worry about. Psychologists call this an anxious attachment pattern, first mapped in the work of Bowlby and Ainsworth. And to a brain shaped that way, chaos does not feel like danger. Chaos feels like home. So when a steady, available person offers you calm, uncomplicated affection, some part of you flinches. It feels unfamiliar. It feels like there is nothing to do, no one to win over, no anxiety to soothe. And when an unavailable person keeps you guessing, you feel that old, familiar ache, and you mistake the familiarity for chemistry. You are not drawn to them because they are right for you. You are drawn to them because they recreate a feeling you have known since before you could speak. And now, look at the world you live in. Dating apps that make you swipe and wait, never knowing if a match will appear. Messages marked red with no reply. A little gray dot that types and then stops. You are surrounded by machines, engineered to run the exact same trick Skinner found in that box. And they have trained you to expect love to arrive on a random schedule. So when a real person finally offers you something steady and sure, it can feel almost wrong. Because the whole modern world has taught your dopamine to crave the maybe. That is the strange machinery underneath your worst crushes, a gambling brain that craves uncertainty, a body that confuses anxiety for attraction, and a childhood blueprint that whispers, love is supposed to feel like this. Three forces, all pushing you toward the one person who cannot love you back, and all disguising themselves as destiny. So what do you do with this? The first thing is to rename the feeling. That electric, obsessive, can't eat, can't sleep pull is not proof that someone is your soulmate. It is proof that your dopamine system has found a slot machine. The intensity is not a green light. Very often, it is a warning. When you feel that desperate, anxious craving, pause and ask a quieter question. Not, how badly do I want them, but how safe do I actually feel with them? Those are two completely different measurements, and you have spent your whole life confusing them. The second thing is to sit with calm without calling it boredom. When you meet someone kind, steady, and available, and you feel a strange flatness, do not trust that flatness as a verdict. That flatness is just the absence of anxiety. Your nervous system is so used to the alarm that silence feels like nothing, but that silence is what safety actually feels like. It is quiet on purpose. Give it time, and real attraction can grow inside that quiet, the slow kind that does not burn you down. And the third thing is to understand that your brain can be retrained. The pull toward the unavailable is a habit, not a life sentence. Every time you choose to walk toward steadiness instead of chasing the storm, you weaken the old circuit a little. Every time you refuse to mistake anxiety for love, the machine loses a bit of its grip. What was wired in can be wired differently, slowly, unglamorously, and for real. Because here's the truth no slot machine will ever tell you. The love that lasts is almost never the one that made your hands shake. It is the one that let them finally rest. You check your phone again, but this time you understand what you were really waiting for. Not them, Never really them. Just one more uncertain pull of a lever your brain was built to chase. And the moment you see the machine for what it is, you get to do something you have never done before. You get to put the phone down and want someone who actually wants you back.